Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Racha Kudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Yapath. Yapath is the Hebrew way of saying Japheth. And in this lesson, we're just going to go and hit a couple of points dealing with Noah's son, Japheth, or Yapath. Years ago, we used to teach that the term Yapath or Japheth meant beauty or beautiful, and it doesn't. The word Yapath means enlarged, because the Lord gave Japheth a big region of land, which is comprised of all of Europe, as you can see, parts of Asia, so-called Asia, down in the southern parts, the different islands in the Mediterranean Sea that they had, until the Edomites came out, around 800 BC or so, which is when they broke away from Judah. And it's my personal belief that this is when they started to, migrate and conquer Europe, beginning with the so-called Macedonians, Philip of Macedonia and his son Alexander the Greek, which was the Greek civilization, which pretty much they took that name from the original dark-skinned Japheth people that were in those regions. And they repopulated the earth. It tells you in the Josephus that they changed the names, of these different languages, because whenever a nation would conquer another nation, they wouldn't change the name of that land. But when Esau got up in there, that's exactly what they did. They changed the names of the land to Greek names, So, there's a big mix up and jumble up, when you look up different tribes, because there were a lot of different tribes throughout Europe that were these dark skin, brown skin, people that were known biblically as Japheth, and some of them, sometimes they will come together. That's why they said there was a mix up of, different tribes, that were calling themselves so-and-so and such and such, so there's a big mix up, some of them say that this particular group of people that Elder Apostle Tahar spoke about, the Cimmerians, not the Cimmerians of Samaria, but Cimmerians with a C, Cimmeriam. And some say that they were Iranian people. Some say that they were, tribes from the north, and we believe that they were Japheth also. All right, you have the Etruscans, you have the Minoans, you have the people called the Picts, which the Picts was a shortened form of the word, pictorial, which the word pictorial was what the Romans called them, because they would paint themselves, they had, pretty much tattoos, which Lord's will we get a little bit into that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Genesis 10:1. It says, "Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood." Now keep in mind, the flood happened. Everybody died except for 8 people. Noah, his 3 sons, and their 4 wives. And when the waters subsided, out of these 3 sons of Noah, the whole earth became repopulated. And one of the blessings that Japheth received, let's go to the book of Genesis 9. And 22, "And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his 2 brethren without, And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant shall he be unto his brethren. And this is why, eventually, we were able to go into the land that was known as Canaan, take it from these Hamites, and rename it the land of Israel. And that was because that was a blessing from the Lord that we would receive that land. And the curse that Noah put on his son's firstborn, Canaan. And he said, Blessed be the Lord, the power of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. So these Hamites eventually did become servants. They were hewers of wood, drawers of water. In the kingdom, all nations will become servants under the nation of Israel because they are our inheritance by the law. It says, The Most High shall enlarge Japheth. And you could see by looking at this map that their land comprised of all of this here. You have all of Europe, parts of what's known as Asia, down in parts of what was known as Asia Minor, the islands of the sea, the southern parts of Europe. This is a big land. And this is why after the Romans conquered so much, of these lands, they didn't go any further north because it was just too vast. The Roman military was not equipped to fight, guerrilla warfare type tactics between trees and all of that. They had to be out on an open field to be able to maneuver and lock in their shields. They show you that in the movie 300, no, not 300, Gladiator, where they were fighting, the Romans. They show you that in the movie Centurion, when the Picts, pretty much ambushed the Romans while they were rolling through that forest because they were not equipped to fight that guerrilla type warfare, because everything with them was about formation. So there's, like I said, there's a vast history of all these different Japhetic tribes that were all throughout Europe and Asia Minor, and they were moved out by Esau, beginning with the Greeks, because they say that civilization began with the Greeks. Why? Because Alexander the Creep, was the first king to unite all of Greece, and then he conquered what was known as the known world. And then from that point on, eventually the Greek Empire got assimilated into the Roman Empire, and then the Roman Empire fell, and now was back in power through the Renaissance, America and her allies, NATO and the EU, and is soon to be destroyed. So, going back, it says, the sons of Japheth, Gomer. Now, Gomer, you could look up these individually. It's going to take too long to do. And they kind of give you a little bit of, where some of these places are located, but they're not always accurate. And, with these so-called scholars, there's a whole lot of speculation. And this one says this, and the other one says that, and the third one says this, and, they can't agree as to, so it's a whole bunch of bullshit. But Esau is the authority, so people look at that and say, oh, well, they're the authority, so they know. Well, who made them the authority? Anyhow, Gomer, as we see here, is located in what's known as Turkey today. All right? So you had some of the Japhetic tribes that were located within Turkey. Some of them were located in Greece and Italy, Spain, France, Germany, all of these different lands and regions to where they, scattered to. All right. And then we have Magog, which the only other time Magog is really mentioned is in the book of Ezekiel, the 38th and the 39th chapter, and also in the book of Revelation 20, as pretty much a scene of future judgment, and one of the major nations that the Lord is going to use to destroy Babylon the Great. So Magog would be up in the region known today as Russia. And those Russians that are there, a lot of them are Edomites. They took over the Japhetic people, the brown-skinned Japhetic people that were there. Some of them are Jakes. You may have some of them that are still descendants of Japheth. So there's a big mix-up, and this is why the Lord is coming to do the sifting. He's going to sift Israel from the nations, and he's going to sift the nations back into their, into their tribes. Everything is going to be put back in order when the kingdom is established. Then we have Madai, which Madai is the ancient name for the Medes, which the Medes, Madai or Media, the Medes were a Japhetic people that ruled jointly with the Persians, which the Persians, the so-called Iranians today, they, along with, Elam, or the so-called East Indian, they're all Elamites. They just look different because there was a whole lot of mixing going on. So you have the ancient Persians and the Medes that ruled jointly. The Medes come from, Japheth or Yapath. You have Javan here. Now, Javan or Yawan, as it's in the Hebrew, is here in Greece. Okay? This was the ancient name of Greece was Yawan. And you even have a word called Ionia, which is another name for this, which goes back to Javan or Yawan. All right. So this is why a lot of people have a misconception that the so-called quote unquote Europeans are Japheth because they live in those lands now. But the reason why they live in those lands is because they broke the cardinal rule. They broke the law. Going back to Deuteronomy 32:8, it says, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance. What was their inheritance? Their inheritance was the lands that were received from them by the Heavenly Father once Shem, Ham, and Japheth, populated or repopulated the earth. And there were certain portions of land meted out to each tribe of the sons of Noah. When he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people. All other nations got their lands according to the number of the children of Israel, because he gave them their lands, but he saved the best portion for Israel. And the Lord, is so strategic that he made sure that the Canaanites would get the land that we would get, because eventually that was something that was going to be turned over to us. It says, for the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob is the lot of his inheritance, because we are the inheritance of the Lord. And he gave us the best of the land, what the so-called scholars call the Fertile Crescent. You type in Fertile Crescent and go to maps, or just type in Fertile Crescents, go to images or Fertile Crescent map, then hit images, and they'll show you all of the land from the river Euphrates all the way down to the river in Egypt. And all of that was the land that the Lord gave to the children of Israel. All right, now moving forward to Deuteronomy 19, it says laws of landmark and testimony. Deuteronomy 19:14, thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's landmark. And Esau is guilty of this on all levels. When you go to the Josephus tells you that when the Greeks came in, they took over these different lands and they changed the names to Greek sounding names. They were the first ones to remove landmarks and to take the names of those landmarks off of it. That's why it's nearly impossible to be able to pinpoint every nation in the scriptures and pinpoint exactly the location of their lands, because Esau removed those lands. You see, and put his names upon it. That's why you have 5 different scholars saying 5 different things. You see, and some of them just follow a pattern of other writers that came before them that wrote these things, that made mistakes, and they just ran with it. It says, and the scriptures say that the finding out of a parable is a wearisome labor of the mind. And these devils do study. But even they cop out on certain things because they know that it's impossible to pinpoint every single point. It says, which they of old time have set in thine inheritance. So you ain't supposed to remove those landmarks, because the Heavenly Father gave each people on the planet, each descendant of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, their portion of land, and that's what they were supposed to keep and not get rid of it. That's why there were certain laws where we were not supposed to, if you had just daughters, your daughters couldn't marry outside of their tribe, because then the land would become the inheritance of the tribe that they married. So they had to marry within their tribe to keep the land for the descendants of that particular tribe. You see? Very important. Land is very important. Land is wealth. It says, which thou shalt inherit in the land of the Lord thy power, and the Lord that the land, and Salakia, which thou shalt inherit in the land that the Lord thy power giveth thee to possess it. It's a tongue twister. Now let's go from there to Proverbs 22:28. Remove not, which I saw a brother put it up. Remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set. And this is precise. This is like telling you this is forbidden. But the scriptures say, unto the wicked, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, and that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth, seeing thou hatest instructions and castest my words behind thee? Because these devils don't follow what the scriptures say. They just use the scriptures as a prop. They use the scriptures for the power that it contains and the sway that it has on people. But outside of that, as far as keeping what's in there, they don't. And they won't, because they can't. So from there, Proverbs 23:10, remove not the old landmarks and enter not into the fields of the fatherless. Yeah, because this is an inheritance for them, and this is a part of, their riches, is their land. All right, so going back to Genesis 10, now you got Tubal, which Tubal is in, and this is one of the nations, that Russia is going to be a guard unto. So Tubal is in the land of what today is known as Turkey. Right here you see Tubal. All right. Now sometimes you'll look at a map and they'll have, Tubal might be a little more over here and Togarmah might be a little bit more, so like I said, these are circa around these regions and these areas. All right. Somebody, well, no, because Meshach is really 10 miles more to the east, and 5 miles to the south. It really is not right. Shut the fuck up, man. All right. And Meshach is another one of those nations that Russia is going to, protect. And Meshach is also in this region. Now they have Meshach over here more into like Armenia, southern Georgia, which Georgia used to be a part of Russia, until they broke away. So this is where Meshach is at, in this area. So all of these nations that are mentioned, in Ezekiel the 38th chapter, that's who Russia is going to protect. And we see that they have a vested interest in a lot of these different nations. When you go into the research. Now we got and Tyrus. Now Tyrus, they have it up here north of Greece, which this looks like it might be like in Romania. Right here, it looks like, because here's Greece and here's Romania. You know, so it looks like it's in this region here. When we look at the map, right here, Tyrus, Greece, Tyrus, you know. So it's in that region somewhere around here. Maybe Serbia, you know, maybe Bulgaria, you know, but it's in this region here, according to this map. All right, now you have, and the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz. Now, Ashkenaz, they say, are the, you know, these little hat, you know, little hats call themselves Ashkenazi, you know, because of the name Ashkenaz, which they say it's in Germany. All right, but Ashkenaz has nothing to do with the little hats because they're Amalek, they're Edomites. Then you got Yapath, which is another one, and they have it also here in Turkey. You have Togarmah, which is another major nation. It says in the north quarters, which is one of the nations that Russia is going to protect. What you see up here, and what's known as is looks like it's bordering Turkey and Armenia. You know, and when you look it up, you know, it tells you, you know, you might get varying, you know, information. All right. Then you have the sons of Yawan, which is Greece. You have Elisha, which they have over here. I'm not sure if they're pointing it towards Italy or this island here, which is Sicily, you know. Then you have Tarshish, which Tarshish is Spain. This is where Jonah tried to run to. Tarshish is Spain right here. Then you have Kittim, which Kittim is the island right here, as you can see, which is Cyprus today. This is known as Cyprus today, you know, Kittim. Now, keep in mind, and this is where actually Alexander the Creep was at, you know, when he came to Macedonia, you know, to conquer. When we read in the Apocrypha, you know, he came from this island here. What he was doing there, I have no clue. You know, you have to do the research, find out why he was there. I don't know if he was born there, you know, and then from there moved on, you know, because there was a lot of, like even with Antiochus Epiphanes, he was actually a, what's the word I'm looking for? He was a captive, for lack of better word. There's another word for it, you know, that was in Rome, and then they let him go, and they brought him, you know, to rule in that area of Syria. All right, so that's Kittim, which is Cyprus. You have Dodanum, which they have. I didn't actually didn't find it on this map where they had it, but they had other maps where it was actually. Let me see. No, they didn't have it here either. All right. I thought I had another map where they showed it. There was another point that I wanted to make. Oh yeah, and this map here, it gives you the descendants of Shem, which is all purple. So all these purple names, these are all descendants of Shem, right? Then you have the descendants of Ham, which is in orange. You know, boom, boom, you know, you have all the different ones. Then you have the descendants of Japheth, which is all green. So everything that's green, these are all the descendants of Japheth. But what I did notice is that they have Philistia here, you know, as a descendant of Japheth. And Philistia, which goes to Mizraim, Matazarium, the Philistines. The Philistines were not descendants of Japheth. The Philistines were descendants of Mizraim, or the so-called Egyptians. So they went off on that. All right. So then it goes on to say, by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Now, this scripture here, certain individuals out there that think they're bright try to use to say, well, look, only Japheth are Gentiles. Because it says here, by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided. So only Japheth are Gentiles. Because this one individual tried to use this, upon me. And I said, well, listen. I said, when you look up the word Gentile goes back to the word Gawayim. You have it here, Ha-Gawayim, the nations. And when you look up the word nations, it goes back to the same word, Gawayim. So Gentiles are nations. And then he had to back away Because, see, this is the stupidity of people out there. They'll say, well, only Japheth are Gentile. No. You got to understand, that's why you have to go back to the original language. The word Gentiles and the word nations is the same thing, Gawayim, because it's plural. If you say nation, it's Gawaya, as it's written here. The word Gawaya. When you go to the actual breakdown, nations, right? This one is Ba Gawayim, it's in nations, and then you got Gawaya, which is nation singular. Well, here they got Ba Gawa Yahum, but it should be the same as Ha Gawayim, Gentiles, nations. And they both go back to the root word Gawaya, which is nation or Gentile. It uses the same word, So what we're going to do now is I got a little bit of information. I'm going to read a little bit of the Etruscan Civilization, show you a little bit of art, and then just take it from there. Because these Etruscans were actually Japhetic people. These were the original inhabitants of what's known today as Italy. It says the Etruscan civilization of ancient Italy covered a territory at its greatest extent of roughly what is now Tuscany, western Umbria, and northern Lazio, as well as what are now the Pro Valley, Emilia-Romagna, southeastern Lombardy, southern Veneto, and western Campania. Who was the governor of Campania during the Heraclean dynasty? Inside joke. Elder Positar knows the answer to that. It says the earliest evidence of a culture that is identified Etruscan dates from about 900 BC. This is the period of the Iron Age Villanovan culture, considered to be the earliest phase of Etruscan civilization, which itself developed from the previous late Bronze Age Proto-Villanovan culture in the same region. Etruscan civilization endured until it was assimilated into the Roman society. See? So the Etruscans, which were a dark-skinned people, as you see here in Etruscan art, you have brown-skinned people, look like light-skinned Jakes. Some of them had woolly hair, some of them had, straighter hair. But their culture was, they were a brown-skinned people. Now, every once in a while, they would depict a white-looking person. I'm not sure in Etruscan art if it's the same thing, but when you go to Minoan art, the Minoan art actually, explains to you why you had some that were dark-skinned and some that were white-looking. Like you see here, this is another dark-skinned Japhite with woolly hair, curly hair. Here you got a super dark one. These devils have lied to the world. Now, when you type in Etruscan terracotta, the Etruscan terracotta is a very dark-skinned individual with a big fat nose. And when you look at these so-called Polynesian people, They are the Japhetic people that were moved out of the regions of what is known today as Europe. A lot of them were seafaring people. You know, the Etruscans, the Minoans, you know, a lot of those different Japhetic people of those lands were seafaring people. So are the Polynesians. Here you go. You got another dark-skinned individual. Then you got a woman that's white. And like I said, I don't know if it applies to the Etruscan art also, but we're going to get to that point. Here you got another one. You know, and these devils, they're everybody. They're everybody. When they take over something, they put their face on everything. Here you have a Japhetic person with braids. Esau don't wear braids, man. Now keep in mind that all of these individuals, these different Japhetic tribes, they were all throughout Europe. You know, the first, Scottish people were Japheth. Then eventually Esau got in there. Then eventually Jake got in there. So there's a big mix-up. All right, and this is all Etruscan art. When you get a chance, just type in terracotta and they'll show you. So let's see what else we got. Assimilation began in the late 4th century BC as a result of the Roman-Etruscan wars. Now, the original Romans, like Elder Pastor said, we believe that they were Japheth because, we got along with them. We never got along with Esau, so it makes sense. It says it accelerated with the grant of Roman citizenship in 90 BC and became complete in 27 BC. And by this time, you had the Edomites that took over the Roman Empire all throughout. You have something in 65 BC, you had a triumvirate. I know Pompey was one of them. If I'm not mistaken, Mark Antony might have been one. And somebody else, but Salakia, I haven't gone over that history in a while, so I don't remember the first 3 men of the triumvirate. Then you had the second triumvirate during the time of the first Caesar, Julius Caesar. I'm not sure if he was a part of the first triumvirate or not, but it's been a while. It says when the Etruscans territory was incorporated into the newly established Roman Empire, and this is why the Romans eventually took over those lands and took over those people. And what they did was they assimilated a lot of the cultures of these different nations right into their the water, brother. Yep, Cassius was one. Yep, Cassius. I have to go over it again just to double check for myself. Said Etruscan culture was influenced by ancient Greece culture, beginning around 750 BC during the last phase of the Villanovan period, when the Greeks who were at this time in their archaic Orientalization period, state founding colonies in southern Italy. Greek influence also occurred in the 4th and the 5th centuries BC during Greece's classical period. So, short end. You could read more. If you want, I put all of these in the in the description box. So afterwards, the water brothers, Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. All right, the water. So pretty much, like I said, if you want to, you brothers that like to do reading. We just hit the basic points that bring out the point in the scriptures. And then from that, anything else is just extra gravy. Everything doesn't have, everything is not edifying. Whatever's not edifying, we don't really deal with too tough. If you know it, you know it. If you don't, you don't. So now we move on to the Minoan Civilization. Right? I just want to check something because, okay, good. Minoan Civilization, which pretty much, these are all Japhetic tribes. The Minoan Civilization was a Bronze Age Aegean civilization on the island of Crete and other Aegean islands, whose earliest beginnings were from circa 3500 BC, with the complex urban civilization beginning around 2000 BC and then declining from circa 1450 BC until it ended around 1100 BC during the early Greek Dark Ages. It represents the first advanced civilization in Europe. All right, leaving behind a number of massive building complexes, sophisticated art and writing system. Its economy benefited from a network of trade around much of the Mediterranean because they were seafaring people. And this is why when the Edomite Romans came in and they took over these lands, they took over all of those ports because they knew that that's where the money was at. The civilization was rediscovered at the beginning of the 20th century through the work of British archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans. The name Minoan derives from the mythical King Minos and was coined by Evans, who identified the site at Knossos with the labyrinth of the Minotaur. The Minoan civilization has been described as the earliest of its kind in Europe, and historian Will Durant called the Minoans the first link in the European chain. And they were not white people. All right, they were not Edomites. Now, let's see. You can see you could click on these pictures. I don't want to click on it because I have something highlighted below, and you could click and you could see the brown-skinned people. See, this looks like it was whitewashed a little bit, but you can still see like the yellowish, brownish pigmentation. You got more here. You have art here. These are brown-skinned people right here. Brown-skinned people. Right now, when you go to women, this is what I wanted to get to. It says Minoan society was a highly gendered and divided society, separating men from women in art, illustration, clothing, and societal duties. For example, documents written in Linear B have been found documenting Minoan families, wherein spouses and children are not all listed together. In one section, fathers were listed with their sons, while mothers were listed with their daughters in a completely different section apart from the men who lived in the same household, signifying the vast gender divide present in Minoan society. But this is the point I want to get to. Artistically, women were portrayed very different from men. And men were often artistically represented with dark skin, while women were represented with lighter skin. Minoan dresses representation also clearly marks a difference between men and women. Minoan men were often depicted clad in little clothing, while women's bodies specifically later on were more covered up. While there is evidence that the structure of women's clothing originated as a mirror of the clothing that men wore, fresco art illustrates how women's clothing evolved to be more and more elaborate throughout the Minoan era, so on and so forth. So when you look at stuff like this, these are women, and that's why they're painted white. When you look through Minoan art, you see that the men are brown skin, and this is really what they are. But then whenever you see women, they're always depicted as white. Why? To distinguish between the two, because they both had long hair. The men didn't look like they had beards on their face. So this was just a distinction. How to distinguish between men and women. That's why they were painted in such a fashion. The men brown skin and the women dark white. Here you got, men. You got, that appears to be a man. He's a little lighter. There you go. Boom. Then you have women depicted as white, but they were all the same color. You talking about as far as what? The men and the women separate? Like the men and the boys, and then the women and the girls separate, because that makes sense. That makes all the sense in the world. You got to remember, these are the same people, so they're going to carry the same culture. And this is what Esau has put upon the world. He bamboozled the whole world. That's why it says, let's go to Job 9:24. It says, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? So if the earth is given into the hand of the wicked and they cover the faces of the judges thereof, who's the main judge? The Most High, Yahweh, the angels, the Israelites. So if they're going to cover the Heavenly Father and His Son's face, so on and so forth, it would stand to reason that they're going to cover up everything else, because they are forgers of lies. They are physicians of no value. You know, their whole style is chump. You know, and beautiful. Obadiah 1:6. You know, how are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? Okay, cool, Khan. Yep. So so that shows you that you know, everything, you know, in the scriptures is on point. The brother One I bought, Isaiah 25:7, and he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over our people and the veil that spread over all nations. That's what our job is to do. You know, is to, you know, bring out and accentuate the lies that these devils have put out, you know, and like the scriptures say, bring into captivity every thought to the obedience of Yahweh Shai. Now, I want to also go into the Picts. The Picts is a shortened word for pictorial people. The pictorial people were a people that were called that by the Romans, you know, because these people, well, let's get into it. The Picts were a group of people who lived in what is now northern and eastern Scotland. Now, keep in mind, these are not Jakes, these are Japheth. You know, you had Esau that took over that land, and then you had Jake that took over that land. This is why we say that there's a lot of Scottish that are Jakes. But the original people that inhabited that land, which was Japheth, you know, are not Jakes. These are Japhetic people that lived in that region, north of the Firth of Forth. During late antiquity and early Middle Ages, where they lived and what their culture was like can be inferred from early medieval texts and Pictish stones, as you can see in this illustration here. The Latin name Picti appears in written records from the 3rd to the 10th century. Early medieval sources report the existence of distinct Pictish language, which today is believed to have been an insular Celtic language closely related to the Britannic, spoken by the Britons who lived to the south. You know, that gives you, you know, history on it. But what I want to get to is definition and etymology, especially here. The Latin word picti occurs in a panegyric, formal public speech written verse, a formal eulogizing speech from 297 AD, and is most commonly explained as meaning painted. Why? From Latin pringere, to paint, pictus, painted, Greek puctus, picture. This is generally understood to be a reference to a supposed Pictish practice of tattooing, that's exactly what it is. But you see how Esau tries to put his spin, supposed. But that's exactly what they did. They painted them, they tattooed themselves the same way that the so-called Polynesian people today paint themselves with these tattoos. And Rock is an Israelite. He's a Judite that thinks he's somehow Tongan because of his mom. He's a Judite whose father just dealt with a Tongan woman. And he has Tongan siblings on his mother's side, but really he's a Judite. Now, some of them Tongans are Jake, so it could be that his mom could actually be a Jake. So he would be Jake on both sides. You know, but at the end of the day, he's still a Jake, regardless of if his mother was a Jake or not. You know, because you have those dickheads talk about, you know, the bastards, mamzers, whose mother is a heathen and their father's a Jake. You big bonehead suckers out there, man. So as you can see, these people, the so-called Polynesian people, you know, they tattoo themselves. And this is why, you know, you had the Romans that would call them Picts or pictorial people, because they had tattoos on them when they went to war. You know? These are all customs, you know, and this is how we know that these are the same people. They practice the same exact things. Now they might say, well, you know, God painted his face. Yeah, they painted their face. They didn't put tattoos on themselves. The so-called Polynesians actually put tattoos on themselves, just like the Picts would actually put tattoos on themselves. The pictorial people. It says tattooing is understood to have been practiced by the Chalcedonians at the time of the campaign of Septimius Severus in 208 AD, which Septimius Severus was a Jake, as reported by Herodian. And Isidora of Seville reports in the early 7th century that practice was continued by the Picts. While this seems logical, an alternative suggestion is that the Latin Picti was derived from a native form, perhaps related etymologically to the Gaelic Pictones. You know, so you know that you're gonna have the truth, and then you're gonna have the spin-offs, the spin doctors. Yep, they're culture vultures. You know. Oh, check that out. A lot of tattoo artists are Yapath. The world is full of imposters. You right about that. You know, then you have the Sumerians, which the Elder Pastor went into, you know, which I don't really know a whole lot about them, but I believe that they're Japhetic because they lived in those regions. They, you know, sometimes they say that these are Iranians. Sometimes they say they're, you know, European, you know, so-called Europeans from that area, which when they speak about these ancient tribes and they speak about them being European, meaning these were the original Japhetic brown-skinned people. And we have to say it like that because you have people out there, even among Jake, that think that the Japhetic people are the Edomites today, which they're not. Then you have the Scythian people, which Elder Pastor went also over this, you know, and they had, as you can see here, this region, you know, which is, you have Parthia here. This is Turkey, you know, Arabia. So these are all some of the same regions where you had Japheth located. You know, so they had to be they had to be Japhetic people also. And like I said, there's a whole host and list of different tribes that were all throughout there. These are just some of, you know, the ones that we know of. Yeah, we know that. What's your point? Hip-hop is a false culture. Rappers are idols that sacrifice souls to Satan. Yeah, we know that. What's your point? All right, so pretty much, you know, that covers Japheth. You know, let's go real quick to the book of Isaiah, chapter 60. The brother said, okay, yeah, this is brother from Australia. And shalom to all the, you know, Akim, you know, in the comment board, and shalom to the sincere sisters and the sincere brothers, of course. I live among Samoans, Tongans, Fijians, Aboriginals, and Maori. They all have the same spirit, tattoos, and eat the same thing. Yeah, because they're all the same people. Now you have among them, you have a lot of Israelites among them. You know, the Maori people, and you know all them different tribes among the so-called Polynesian people. You have a lot of Jakes among them, but for the most part, those are Japheth. Those are some of the. And also the I don't know, I know they call them Aboriginals, you know, all the Aborigines of Australia, them real dark skinned ones. Those are all Japhetic people that were moved and pushed out of Europe by Esau. And then Esau took over those lands and put his face on it. That's why it says here in Isaiah 60, arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. So this light is what? This truth. And it shines a light on all these falsities out here, you know, all these false images, these false speeches that the Lord is using us to break down. Oh, yeah, the Boya tribe, definitely, those are Jakes. Those are Jakes all the way. We're not here to play. We're just here to say this is a raid, raid, raid. Everybody on the dance floor. Raid. Ooh. Now those are Jakes all the way. Then the skinny one with the braids was dancing like crazy. It says, for behold, the darkness shall cover the earth. And this is what happened. Darkness covered the whole entire earth. This is why the Lord had to, pull back the veil from among all these different nations, because they were all, everybody was in darkness at one time until the Lord woke us up. Now you had some brothers that had some inclination of certain things, but for the most part, we didn't know that we were Israelites. Some brothers had a little inclination, but then eventually the Lord opened it up completely. Now, before I finish reading this, I want to get this precept that the brother put up. Habakkuk 2:5, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied. That's right. It says, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Yeah, and he takes their lands, their resources. You see how how the American military, through the American government and these international banking families, go into these different nations and gangster their lands, gangster their resources, and gangster them and put them into captivity and slavery. It's the same shit that's been done ever since Esau, the so-called white man, has been in power. They got a little taste of power through, Alexander the Creep, and from that point on, boom, just went all out. The reason people are cursed is because they believe the lies laugh out loud. So the false desire, gold, iron, idols, etc. stuff were lies. People believed they desire lead to enslavement, but the truth is all desire. Yeah. Well, his name is Yahweh, not Yah. Yah is just a shortened form of the Heavenly Father's name. So if you're going to come, you have to come all the way through. You can't just pick and choose what you want and, have a little platform for yourself, but then the rest of the doctrine you deny. No space, laugh aloud. I don't know. I don't know what your problem is. I don't know if you're a scoffer. I don't know, but all right. Well. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. And this is what happened. This is why you have a lot of people today that still believe that Esau are Japhetic people. You have a lot of people that still believe that the little hatters are the Israelites, which they're not. You still have people that venerate and worship the other white meat, that, Caesar Borgia, that, the picture of sweet Jesus, so on and so forth, because there was a gross darkness that was put upon the whole entire planet until the Lord peeled that veil back. It says, but the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee, and this is why that ingredient that the Lord gave to the elect to be able to see, that eye salve that the scriptures speak about, that was able, which was an illuminating oil, in the spirit of the elect, which Elder Apostle Gabar from time to time goes into. The reason why an owl can see in the dark is because they have this special liniment, they have this special oil behind the eyes that illuminates their eyes, and they can see in the dark. So this is similar to the eye salve in the scriptures that illuminates the mind of the elect to be able to see through this darkness that the majority of the world can't see through, And there was a great deception going back to Revelation, the 20th chapter. Once the devil was loosed out of his prison sentence, he began to deceive the whole world, and the way he deceived the whole world was by covering the truth and pushing out the lies. But as we know, we're at the point where the true light is shining through and the lies are being smashed. This is the book of 2nd Ezra 6. Was it second Ezra 6? What did I go to? Oh, I went to Ecclesiasticus, Salakia. Second Ezra, not second Ezra 6, and I start at 25. Whosoever remaineth from all these that I have told thee shall escape and see my salvation and the end of your world. And this is what we're witnessing, the end of the world. You know? It says, and the men that are received shall see it, meaning the elect, who have not tasted death from their birth, and the heart of the inhabitants shall be changed. Why? Because the truth is going to overtake the lies. The darkness is going to be overtaken by the light, you know, and the minds of the elect would be able to see in order to report this damage that has been done to the earth by the lies of those that, you know, took over and turned into another meaning. Why? Because at one time everybody was under the same thought pattern, because remember, he deceived the whole world, you know. But then you had those that can see, you know, and they were starting, they started to, you know, expose the lies that these devils pushed out there, to where now you have a lot of people waking up, some sincere, some are not, but nevertheless people are waking up to this fact. You have people out there, you know, talking about Esau, you know, that are not even part of camps or anything like that. It says, for evil shall be put out and deceit shall be quenched. And we're witnessing deceit being quenched. But even though deceit is being quenched, it's still ruling in the minds of the ones that are still blinded, in whom the God of this world blinded the minds of them which believe not. As for faith, it shall flourish, corruption shall be overcome, and the truth, which hath been so long without fruit, shall be declared. And the word declare, de is of, and clear is to make clear. So the truth is being made clear, which at one time had no fruit. Now it's coming out to the forefront. The veil is being pulled back. The deception has come to an end among certain of the elect of the nation of Israel, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, and wherever you may be throughout the four corners of the earth. So with that, pretty much this has been Yapath, you know, Japheth. You know, I've been wanting to do this lesson for a couple of days now, but, you know, it's a lot of information you have to go through, a lot of reading, you know, so I just wanted to just try to get some of the finer points to try to bring out, you know, the fact that these people that were known as Japheth are the brown-skinned Polynesian people today that inhabit, you know, the southwest, not the Polynesian islands, or however they call it. There's another term for it. And I had an individual come on one of the comment boards probably about a week ago that said, why we don't never talk about Japheth. Now, I don't know if he was being a scoffer or if he was sincere, but I pretty much dismissed him because it seemed the way he came off was like seemed like he had an attitude, you know. But if he was sincere, then hey, here he goes, you know. And we've done lessons on Japheth before, you know. So with that, I pray that you brothers and you few sisters that have been edified. To the next time I say shalom.